Okay, we can get started. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today and welcome to Hazardous Waste 101. Today's webinar is hosted by Rethink Waste and San Mateo County Environmental Health Services. My name is Joanna and I am the Outreach and Communications Coordinator at Rethink Waste, along with Julia, who you just heard, who welcomed you in, who is the Senior Outreach Education and Compliance Manager also at Rethink Waste. We are joined by colleagues from San Mateo County Environmental Health Services who will be introduced soon. So before we get started, there are a couple of housekeeping rules. If you could go to the next slide. Everyone has been muted upon entry, but we still want to hear from you. So at the bottom of your screen, there is a Q&A button where you can enter your questions throughout the webinar, shown within that red circle on the slide. You can put in questions as the discussion happens and we'll try our best to get through all of them. And don't hold back. We have some real experts joining us today. You can also use the chat if you have information you want to share with everyone, or if you just want to say hi. You just have to make sure your setting is on all panelists and attendees, just like in the picture, if you want to make your message visible to all participants. If there are any technical issues, you can also put that in the chat and staff will do their best to assist you. Lastly, this webinar is being recorded and we will send it out to all registrants in a week's time. So the order of events today is, I'll start with a brief introduction of who we are and why we're here today. Then we'll have our overview of what hazardous waste is and how you can dispose of it. We'll then hear about some alternatives to hazardous waste, and that's also where we'll have a demo on how to make a homemade cleaner without the chemicals. And throughout the webinar, we'll have some time to answer your questions. So let's get started. Okay, so Rethink Waste is a government agency that manages the waste services from Burlingame to East Palo Alto, visualized on this map. We serve 428,000 residents, 93,000 households, and 11,000 businesses. All of the waste from the color-coded parts of this map goes to the Shoreway Environmental Center in San Carlos, which Rethink Waste owns and manages, pictured here on the left. We also provide education to residents, schools, and businesses on waste reduction and proper disposal, which is why we have these educational webinars. Next slide, please. I have the honor of sharing the screen today with experts from San Mateo County Environmental Health Services. Environmental Health Services is responsible for keeping our environment safe and healthy in San Mateo County. They oversee hazardous waste management, restaurant and housing inspections, medical waste disposal, water quality protection, and pollution prevention throughout the 20 cities and towns in the county, which is made up of a population of 767,000 people and 21,000 businesses. And of all those crucial topics they oversee, I'm sure we can have a webinar on each one of these, but today we will be focusing on hazardous waste. So why are we here today? Why today? Well, we've been getting a bunch of questions about how to properly dispose of items. A lot of people are home right now working on projects they've been meaning to get to, going through their stuff and keeping their homes clean. Well, we want to share our resources with all of you that clearly want to do the right thing by knowing your options. On top of that, today's National Battery Day. So we decided to talk about not only batteries, which, spoiler alert, it is considered hazardous waste, but also other household items that need to be handled and disposed of differently than the items that go in your recycling, compost, and garbage. Now that we're all on the same page of who we are and why we're here, let's begin with our first presenter. Charles Gleaves is a former hazardous materials field chemist for an environmental services contracting company and is now a hazardous materials specialist with the San Mateo County Household Hazardous Waste Program. He will be giving us an overview of hazardous waste. Charles?
Thank you, Joanna. As introduced, my name is Charles Gleaves. I'm a hazardous materials specialist with the Household Hazardous Waste Program here in San Mateo County. This is basically what you're seeing in front of you is an overview of what I'll be talking about. What is hazardous waste? Who's in charge of managing it? The difference between hazardous materials and universal and e-waste, as well as various services that our department provides the public. Throughout this PowerPoint presentation, you will hear me use the term HHW, which is just an acronym for household hazardous waste, which can be somewhat of a mouthful, but just be aware that those two terms can be used interchangeably. So go ahead, next slide. So what is hazardous waste? Well, hazardous waste is defined by the Environmental Protection Agency as waste that is dangerous or potentially harmful to our health or the environment. Hazardous waste can be liquids, solids, gases, or sludges. They can be discarded commercial products like cleaning fluids or pesticides, or the byproducts of manufacturing processes. What you're seeing here in this image is many of you have probably seen these before. These are Department of Transportation hazard placards. These you'll see on the side of trucks transporting waste. You'll also see them on containers that contain hazardous materials. I'll go into a little bit more detail about these in upcoming slides. So next, please. All right, so what are some household hazardous waste products? Well, they include very strong drain cleaners, as well as soap concentrates, pesticides and fertilizers, automotive byproducts such as oils, fuels, and antifreeze, paints and stains as well, some construction compounds, as well as compressed gases such as butane, propane, and natural gas. Next slide. Oh, next slide, please. There we go. So first, let's talk about poisons, or sometimes in the industry they're referred to as toxics. These are dangerous to human health and life. They enter your body through various means, inhalation, ingestion, injection, or dermal contact being a big one. Their toxicity depends on the material, but these are things that you definitely want to keep out of landfills. You want to keep out of watersheds. And one of them not mentioned on here is ocular exposure. Sometimes people can be exposed to poisonous substances through their eyes. It's very rare, but it does happen. So, and the skull and crossbones is a dead giveaway of that. That's the symbol for that. Next, we have flammable materials. On the screen here, we have the old fire triangle, which is fuel plus oxygen plus spark equals fire. Flammable liquids are solvents like alcohols and fuels. In our program, we get a lot of old gasoline and paint thinners during our collection events. It can include flammable gases such as barbecuing fuels like propane, or welding fuels like matte gas, and it can also include flammable solids such as road flares, matchbooks, and things of that nature. Next, please. Now we have reactives. Reactives are very interesting. They include oxidizers such as oxygen, chlorine, hypochlorites, permanganates, peroxides. When mixed with organic compounds, oxidizers force a chemical reaction that can produce a lot of heat, cause fires even in the absence of oxygen. So they can be in an anaerobic environment and still produce heat and fire, which makes them very dangerous. Reactives also include part A and B compounds, such as resins that harden or create heat when they're mixed. And reactives also include dangerous when wets, which are usually pure metals like potassium, sodium, magnesium, and lithium that react with moisture, both water or even just moisture in the air to, they split the molecule and create hydrogen and heat, which creates fire. Next slide. Now we have corrosive materials. Corrosive materials eat through skin and metal, and they can be very harmful to people, causing serious burns or worse on contact and exposure. Generally, in terms of regulatory oversight, hazardous corrosives are strong acids or bases, and that's defined as a pH for acids 2.5 or below, or for basic substances, a pH of 12.5 or above. Next, please. All right, what you're seeing here is the global harmonized system. I'm seeing these personally more and more on labeling on various products on the back of the products. they're the little red diamonds with little black symbols in them. And if you look carefully at some of your products you get at the hardware store, you may see some of these. These include dangerous to the environment, which is that one with the little fish in the dead tree. These products are not necessarily harmful to people, but they can be very damaging to watersheds, aquatic species, and plants and animals. Compressed gases, or is that little one that looks like a bottle in the middle there. These aren't necessarily flammable gases, but they are compressed and they are under pressure. So if you puncture the outer container, it can be very dangerous. Irritants and sensitizers is that little exclamation point. An irritant can irritate your skin or mucous membranes, while a sensitizer actually has an accumulative effect. What it does is that you become allergic to it over time, and you get a worse and worse effect upon repeated exposures. And then there's also a symbol for health hazard or carcinogen, which is like a little man that has some particles inside him. These are substances that can harm your health or over long-term exposure can cause cancer. Lastly, we have explosives and ammunition, which are, it's a little exploding round symbol. And these are dangerous for obvious reasons. They explode or launch. And please note, we do not accept explosives of any kind at our take-back facilities or events. So next we have universal waste, e-waste, and retail takebacks, which I'll talk about in a future slide. So the difference between universal waste and hazardous waste is that hazardous materials tend to be quite dangerous to people and property. Universal waste isn't as dangerous, but we do want to keep it out of the landfills because it does tend to contain materials that you don't want leaching into the ground. Universal waste includes things like fluorescent lights, CFLs, metal halide lights. Any lights that contain small amounts of mercury essentially fall under the universal waste category. Batteries, including alkaline batteries and lithium-ion batteries, are also considered universal waste. Thermostats and thermometers tend to have various heavy metals or small amounts of mercury in them, so they fall under the universal waste category. And electronic waste, computers and stuff like that. Please note, we do not accept e-waste at our facilities. However, there are routes for you to dispose of that, and my colleagues will talk about those in a little bit later on later slides. So who's in charge? These are the agencies that oversee and regulate hazardous materials throughout the state of California, the United States, and San Mateo County. They include Environmental Health Services, the subdivisions within that, RethinkWaste, California Department of Toxic Substances Control, who oversee various inspection activities on behalf of Environmental Protection Agency, Cal Recycle, and of course, Department of Transportation, which is very influential on hazardous materials regulations because they regulate how hazardous materials and hazardous waste are transported, how you label them, and quite a few agencies defer to them for advice on how to handle these things. Next, please. All right, so one of the services I said I would talk about when we provided the public is our retail take-back program. Now, we've partnered with several hardware stores throughout San Mateo County to give members of the public an easier route so they don't always have to come to our events or to other locations, something nearby where they can drop off lights and batteries. Now, these locations only accept lights and batteries, and I highly suggest you call first. Their storage space can be limited, and you may have to switch to a different store if they're nearing one of their pickup dates and they're rather full. All right, next is a wonderful program, and I'm very, very happy to introduce you guys to them. It's the paintcare.org. So it's a multi-state recycling program for old and unused paint. Your paint doesn't have to be brand new. It can be half full, and it can have been sitting around for a little while. They also accept some paint related materials, including clear coats, stains, varnishes, deck coating, all that stuff. And they accept both latex and oil-based paints. Now, if you want to find a paint care location near you, I encourage you to go to their website, www.paintcare.org. Just scroll down, type in your zip code, and you'll see on a wonderful color map many locations throughout the Bay Area that accept used paint. So at San Mateo County Health Environmental Services, we endeavor to help businesses and local businesses out and be business friendly as much as possible. And with that in mind, we have the VSQG program. Now, what does VSQG mean? It stands for Very Small Quantity Generator Program. This is for small and mid-sized businesses in San Mateo County that have an opportunity to dispose of their hazardous waste through us. Now, the regulations delineate between household generated waste and business waste. So businesses do have to come through this route. They cannot go through the household route. Now, the difference is, whereas household drop-offs are free, VSQG program does charge a small fee, but the business only pays for disposal. We cover the labor and transportation costs. This is where we see a lot of unusual items come through our facilities, including research chemicals and various items like that. Dentist's office often use this type of service as well. So next please. All right. We also have our door-to-door and product giveaway programs. Now, the door-to-door program is for elderly and disabled people only, and we have a truck that actually will go to their house and pick up their HHW from them. We stress that this is really for people who can't drive. It really is for elderly and disabled people who can't get on the roads in any way and don't have anyone else who can help them out, because it is one of the most expensive ways to collect this material. But as of right now, it is suspended due to COVID. We're hoping to start that up again. We also have a free product giveaway program where through our various events and collection activities, we do get occasionally brand new items. So full spray bottles of paint or Lysol, unused motor oil, unused cans of paint, and we give that back to the public for free. On a first come first serve basis. However, that program has also been suspended due to COVID. We hope both of these programs can start up again soon, and with the vaccines rolling out, it's looking really good that we'll have these both back on track again very soon. Now, it's important to talk about what we do not accept at our events or our main facility. We do not accept any radioactive materials, things that come from X-ray machines, anything of that. We do not accept electronics or appliance. That's e-waste. That goes by other routes, which will be talked about later. We do not accept medical or biological materials. We do not accept tires or asbestos. Most compressed gases are also not accepted. We do, however, have 4 types of gases we will accept, which are probably the most common ones used: butane, propane, MAP gas, which is used for welding, and some refrigerant gases such as Freon and stuff like that we will accept. Please, if you have a compressed gas, call us first and we'll let you know whether or not we can or can't take it. So how do you make an appointment? Well, you go to our website at smchealth.org/HHW, scroll down to the Make an Appointment tab, click on it, and you'll see a list of dates for either our main facility or our satellite locations and event locations, which take place throughout the county. Estimate the amount of waste you have. Each container may be up to 5 gallons in size. It cannot exceed that. And you have a volume limit of 10 total gallons or 50 pounds of solid materials or some mix thereof. Fluorescent lights are limited to 10 tubes per visit. So next slide, please. Now you might be wondering why the load limit. Well, state regulations dictated by Department of Transportation say that individuals cannot be on the roads with more than 10 liquid gallons or 50 solid pounds of hazardous materials in their car. So that's where the load restriction comes from. It comes down from up above. If your accumulated waste exceeds the maximum allowable load, it is okay to make multiple visits in the same day, as long as you go home and come back, or make a visit to the next day. We don't limit you to your number of appointments. We only ask that you keep the load to the legal limit. Please transport the waste safely and securely in boxes or bins in the trunk of your vehicle or the back of your truck. When you arrive, stay in your vehicle, turn off your engine, and obey orders from our technicians. They will offload you and swiftly get you on your way. And with that, I will turn it back over to my colleagues. Thank you. I hope I was informative, and I will be sticking around for questions as well.
Thank you, Charles. If you could go back one slide, please. Or actually, no, you were on the right slide. Sorry. Thank you, Charles, for your thorough overview of what hazardous waste, or HHW, is. Also the importance of proper disposal and what our residents and businesses can do in order to handle these items responsibly. So Charles spoke about some really great resources, but now we'll go over what's accepted at the Shoreway Public Recycling Center, or the PRC as we like to call it. Just as the county program takes back certain items, the PRC also takes back specific hazardous waste items, which are pictured here. We accept batteries, including car and household batteries, fluorescent lights and tubes, paint, and that's latex and oil-based paint. And then we also take back electronics, which Charles mentioned. Their HHW facility does not accept electronic waste, but we accept it at Shoreway. These are your laptops, wires, computer monitors, things like that. And then we also accept motor oil and oil filters. And since it's National Battery Day, a holiday celebrated across the nation, I did want to remind folks that when disposing of your used batteries, especially lithium-ion batteries, the terminals need to be taped over with clear tape to prevent fires. And that's because the exposed metal parts of certain batteries can rub together, creating a spark. And that is my battery plug for the day. But the Public Recycling Center is exactly what it sounds like. It is for the public, and you don't need to live within the Rethink Waste service area, which is again Burlingame to East Palo Alto, to drop off items for free, and you don't need an appointment. And you can find the full list of items, both HHW and non-HHW items, at rethinkwaste.org/PRC. We're located at 333 Shoreway Road in San Carlos, open Monday through Saturday from 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Next slide, please. And then we also like to highlight this resource called recyclestuff.org. This is essentially a portal where you can enter in an item that you're not sure about and your zip code, and it will show you a list of drop-off locations near you. With that, the next slide has both Charles and my contact information, and I'm going to pass it off to our moderator, Julia Au, to start us off with our first Q&A portion.
Thanks, Joanna. So I would like to welcome have Joanna and Charles obviously come back to answer some questions. I see we have a few questions in the chat. We also received some questions beforehand in our inbox. So I will just get started with the first question that I see here. I think I'm going to pass this to Joanna. I don't think we have a battery collection in my apartment complex. How do I get it? How do I get one?
That is a great question. If you don't have one, so we actually have one way is to get a battery bucket, which looks like an orange battery, like an orange bucket with like a circle on top. But if you don't see one at your location, you can ask your property manager or your owner to get a bucket for your building from Recology, who's our contractor, for free. And the reason you have to ask your property manager is because they're the ones who can request a bucket and coordinate the pickup. So you're going to have to kind of pressure your property manager a little just to get them to reach out to Recology.
Great. And if you don't live in our service area, I would also suggest anyone to contact their own waste hauler wherever you may live to see if you can get some sort of bucket or container to get your batteries. All right, we have a couple more questions. So we have a couple more minutes for questions. We'll see if we can get to them all. I know there was a question, I see it in the chat. We actually got this question several times in our inboxes as well, is how do we get rid of pressure treated wood? I think, Charles, this is a question for you.
Yeah, pressure treated wood for a long time has been very difficult to get rid of. It can't go to landfills. It needs to be incinerated via proper routes. Then the laws changed as of January this year, which kind of foisted it from, it used to be able to take it to certain landfills and they would take care of it, but now it's considered more of a hazardous materials. So it can be brought into the household hazardous waste program sometime within the next few weeks. We are working out the details, but San Mateo County will be accepting pressure treated wood very shortly, like within a few weeks. So
that's great. I know it's been a very hot topic question, and we're trying to fix it on the state level, but also I'm happy that the county is working on this as well. Thank you. Okay, we have a few minutes, but I'm going to see how many questions we can get to. I'm going to try and answer the next question. Someone asked a question about what is the history of National Battery Day. I actually think it started from the battery industry, but I think it's a good way to highlight, as Joanna mentioned, batteries can cause fires, if you're not taping them properly and stuff. And we had a fire a couple years ago at our facility. So batteries is a very important issue to us. And I think it's a good time to highlight that. So today is National Battery Day. So maybe go around your house and see if you have if you have things that have batteries in them, take them out if you can, and take the ones you need to, and then collect them and, either bring it to our facility or put it on your curb or in that bucket to properly dispose of that, or bring it to a hardware store if you live near one of those take back locations. The next question, I think this is a good question for CJ. What happens to all the stuff that is recycled? So like, what do you guys collect at the hazardous waste facility?
Oh, that's a complex question, and I could go into quite a bit of detail about it. In short, it depends on the material. We actually, things like fuels and stuff like that, sometimes get fuel blended. So they go from being, a dirty fuel, like a solvent that's been used to like degrease an engine or something. It'll be used to power an incinerator. Lights basically get crushed down and recycled and made into new lights. And then materials that can't be recycled are sent to incinerators that have kind of big scrubbers on them. So as it gets burned off, the scrubbers catch the material, and it's a pretty fascinating process. I don't know that we have time to really go into too much detail about that, but everything that comes into our facility either gets recycled, which is what we prefer happen, or gets incinerated properly according to regulations. Virtually nothing in our facility, with the exception of a few items, makes its way to a landfill.
Got it. Thanks, Charles. Yeah, that's great that nothing obviously goes to landfill.
Well, there are a few.
I know there's a few items,
but most of our stuff, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. We'd like to hear that. A common question that we seem to be getting in the Q&A and the chat is what to do about smoke detectors. Joanna, I think you can start this question. Maybe CJ can help her out. Joanna?
Yeah, so smoke detectors, I would first see if the brand has a take back program, because sometimes they do take it back. Like if you send it back, they could take it and they could recycle it. But if not, we do take them back at the Shoreway Public Recycling Center. I'm not sure if Charles, if you all take it back at the HHW facility, which you could probably share some knowledge on.
I'm sorry, my screen just went black. Here we go. Oh, here we go. Can you all see me? All right, good.
Yes.
All right, I'm back. Computer fell asleep on me. We recommend that people do the manufacturer out first, because they do have some of them do have that Americanium, like slightly radioactive material in them. So that's the route. We generally don't take them. But we can accommodate people and send them in the right direction. The best resource for that is actually recyclestuff.org, which you guys talked about, which will send you in the right direction for taking care of those. A lot of them have a very long lifespan too, something like 10 or 20 years. So they're not, you really only have to take care of it once or twice and then never have to worry about it again. So.
All right. Thanks, you guys. I want to make sure we get to the second part of our webinar today. So I know we've had a few questions we haven't been able to get to, but hopefully maybe we can get to them at the end. And if not, we will be taking everyone's questions that have been asked today, and we'll answer them, and we'll provide a link to all of our attendees after in about a week's time with answers to those questions. So continue to ask questions, and if not, maybe we'll even try to answer some by typing those answers in the Q&A. But I do want to now hand over the floor, I guess, to Cynthia Knowles. I want to introduce Cynthia. Cynthia is the Healthy Home Specialist with the Housing Inspection Program at San Mateo County Environmental Health Services. She is dedicated to thoroughly evaluating the sources of substandard housing conditions and working directly with families to address and resolve them in the least toxic and most culturally sensitive manner. I don't know if we have Cynthia on video, but we should be able to hear Cynthia. Cynthia, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear
All
me?
right, and your slides are up, so I'll hand it off.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Really great to be here today. I hope I can present something really useful and informative. So I'm here to talk about briefly about easy do-it-yourself cleaning products. So little overview, why do it yourself, talk a little bit about cleaning basics, then we'll get into the fun part about creating your own, and then we have a video on show and tell. And first question, why DIY? Well, I really save a lot of money not buying brand name products. People tend to buy specific products for specific end uses, and it's really easy to just have some simple individual ingredients that you can actually cook with, some of them, to make cleaning products. So it's cheaper, it's fewer things on your list to buy. It's also less toxic and less dangerous. So there are fewer, dermal or skin and respiratory effects from the use of these basic ingredients, which we'll talk about. And so, we really, we want to ask the question, is it necessary to use the harsher chemicals? We want to clean dirt, we want to clean grime, we want to remove dust. But, some of those germs are mixed in with the dirt. And when you remove dirt, you are removing and wiping away some of the germs. But it's really not necessary to add heavier chemicals to the mix. So we also want to prevent poisonings. And as we know, we just had an excellent presentation by CJ. We can avoid disposal if a product gets old or starts to leak, or we don't think we need it anymore. You would have to take it to the household hazardous waste facility. And with the safer, less toxic cleaning products, you really don't have to do that. So let's expand a little bit on the harmful effects of conventional cleaning products. The California Department of Public Health has very informative brochures, fact sheets, videos. And I really like to use their materials in my community outreach. So some of the ingredients in specific cleaning products, brand cleaning products, can trigger an asthma attack in those that may be asthma sufferers and potentially cause asthma. Not all the products, not all the chemicals do that, but some can. And CJ touched on the issue of sensitization. So that's where if someone's exposed too frequently to a particular product, they may be ingredient in a product, they may become allergic and sensitized. So the Department of Public Health has excellent resources. They have cleaning recipes as well. And then there are nonprofits that do research on the effect of cleaning products, and they provide excellent materials. And here's just an example, what's under your sink, potential hazards of home cleaning products. And this information from Women's Voices for the Earth, and I'll put these websites on in the chat, looking at asthma and respiratory disorders from household cleaning products. And there's an ingredient I'd like to touch on before we get into the safer ingredients, and that's quaternary ammonium compounds. They're called quats for short, and quats are really an alternative to bleach, and something like a benzalkonium chloride. Those products are contained in disinfectants, but it may be overkill. And so, as I mentioned, you can remove some germs with removing the dirt, and we'll talk about some simple individual ingredients that can kill germs as well, but in bacteria. But a lot of the disinfectants have quats, and it's really not necessary to use them. Okay, so next issue, cleaning basics, before we get into some of the uses for our household recipes. No matter what we're using, we want to read the label. We really want to be careful, especially if you are using disinfectants. Make sure you read that label and assure yourself that you're leaving that product, you're following the contact time. You can't just wipe a surface with bleach and expect it to be disinfected. So you need to read the label. Something general, the general rule is when cleaning is avoiding aerosols. The propellant in the aerosol results in that. Those emits those tiny, tiny little droplets from an aerosol can, and those can land on surfaces, and you can also breathe them in. So aerosols aren't necessary. And also, if you put something in a pump spray bottle, those droplets are larger and not as potentially dangerous as an aerosol. As we mentioned, the heavy chemicals are not necessary. I like to think that the do-it-yourself cleaning products are useful for everything in your home. And make sure when you're cleaning, you ventilate, and maybe you want to wear gloves and a mask. But ventilation is critical when we're dusting with maybe a damp cloth even. But ventilation is very important, and you don't need to be concerned about letting all the heat escape from your home during the winter. A lot of the heat in your home is wrapped up and absorbed in furniture and things like that. And so if you have just an exchange of air periodically, you're not necessarily having all the heat escape. So let's get started. 3 steps to a healthy home. This is the backside of a informative brochure that I produced for our Healthy Homes program. And it lists about several recipes for about 8 end uses, and end uses meaning, windows, toilets, mold, drains, and things like that. So I'm going to be demoing one of these recipes at the end, but let's just go to the array of products I keep on hand that are just my arsenal against any kind of dirt and germs. So I have hydrogen peroxide. You can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So I've got hydrogen peroxide, 3% solution, just liquid soap, could be a dish soap, white vinegar. I have baking soda, and I have those that help me put some elbow grease into what I'm cleaning, and that's a scrub brush and some microfiber cloths. So next slide, please. Here are the 4 ingredients that I rely on, and I'll briefly go through what I use each one of them for. Liquid soap is really my go-to. So I will be using liquid soap on countertops, in the sink. I even mix a little bit of liquid soap to mop a floor. Not a lot, just a little. Any surface, bathroom, anything. It's really extremely simple. So you can mix liquid soap with other items. You can mix it with baking soda and vinegar or hydrogen peroxide to make a creamy cleanser, which we'll demonstrate at the end. So really, I'm pretty simple. I've got a lot of recipes here, but liquid soap is my go-to. Now, vinegar is useful if I want to maybe get up some stains or some grime, say up from the countertop. I clean the cutting board with vinegar. I clean the top of the stove with vinegar. Vinegar can fight grease. And I also use it on mold. I try to avoid mold by reducing moisture as much as possible because the only cause of mold is moisture. But vinegar is useful on mold as well. And I'm happy to answer questions, at the end and offline about that. Baking soda. I love baking soda. I even use it along with soap. I use baking soda and a little bit of salt in my dishwasher. So it's this is the first time I've ever had a dishwasher since I moved into this apartment. It's exciting, but I mix baking soda and salt in the dishwasher, so I don't have to buy any dishwashing soap. But baking soda has a little bit of an abrasive action to it, so I'll mix it with hydrogen peroxide and liquid soap to clean the tub, to clean the sink. Very useful. If you got some stains in the sink, in your kitchen sink, it's excellent. Baking soda can be thrown in with the laundry, lots of uses. And then on the right is hydrogen peroxide. And that, if you really like bleach and you're limiting your bleach use, say for disinfecting all of the handles and light switches and doorknobs, that's good. You don't need to bleach your home. You don't need to bleach your walls. You don't need to bleach your floors. If you're limiting your bleach use to those items that are touched by most people in your family very frequently, I guess that's okay. But hydrogen peroxide is something that I use. I dampen a microfiber cloth and I just go over the light switches. I go over the doorknobs, the faucet handles, the stove handle, the fridge handle. I use hydrogen peroxide for that. So here's a brochure that I have. One of the things that I focus on in our Healthy Homes program is prevention. And so I get a lot of questions about mold, and we have materials in English, Spanish, Chinese, and Tagalog, but this is an example of a Spanish speaking brochure. And we have 3 steps to a healthy home. And there is some good guidance on avoiding mold through ventilation and reducing moisture in your home. And I'm always happy to talk about those issues. There's just another slide if you want to go to the next slide on prevention. Keeping a healthy home, you can do that by keeping it clean, keeping it dry, wiping that moisture away. When there's condensation on the window, that's normal and you should expect that. Wipe down that condensation, even in the bathroom. So keep it clean, keep it dry, keep it ventilated, keep it clutter-free. Those are some basic guidance on keeping a healthy home. And so I expect to have some questions on mold, and moisture is the cause of mold. And the photo on the left is an area above a shower. This is heavily stained because it's wood, but there's no ventilation in this bathroom. And on the right side, it's a piece of furniture that was pushed up against the wall. And really one simple rule of thumb is don't push up anything against the wall. If you don't have insulation in your home, if you live in an apartment building, and most apartment buildings do not have insulation, if you have items up against the wall, you're going to have any kind of moisture that's seeping in from the exterior, and you have this tight, there's zero space and no air between the furniture and the wall, you're going to have moisture. So please do yourselves a favor and separate your furniture from the wall and let it breathe. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned earlier, wipe up that condensation. Condensation is normal. Some people may have some leaks in their windows, but generally you should expect condensation on your window. Wipe that up. If there's a little bit of mold on the windowsill, have no fear. Even if it's black, the color black, it's not necessarily black mold that will kill you. That's not, black mold isn't going necessarily to kill you, but it just could be that's the stain that's just the color that's stained. But wipe up that condensation and prevent the mold. This is the picture on the right is really just, this is a corner in a room that doesn't have any furniture, had never had any furniture up against it, but moisture seeps in from the exterior, and you just have to take care and wipe that up before it becomes more serious. So that concludes my discussion. I don't know if you want to do the demo now, Julia, or take some questions.
Yeah, I think we have the video up to our tech support. Thank you, Cynthia, for that great presentation. I definitely learned a lot. Now I'm worried about mold, but that's okay. So thank you, Cynthia recorded this video that we're just going to show about. Cynthia, I guess I'll let you set it up since you filmed it.
So this is just a demonstration of a creamy scrub cleanser using baking soda, liquid soap, and hydrogen peroxide. It's a scrub cleanser so that, you know, it's really good for the tub, essentially. If that gets grimy, you've got the baking soda to add a little abrasivity, but it's not too abrasive, not like a Comet or anything like that. This replaces things like even Bon Ami and Comet. This is something that can replace that.
Hi, and welcome to a very brief demonstration on how to make your own creamy scrub cleanser at home. Very simple ingredients, three to four ingredients that are safe to use at home and safe on your surfaces. I would use my creamy cleanser for any kind of porcelain, to get any stains off, to get any grime in my sinks, tub, faucet. I'll use this creamy cleanser, and very simple. It stores well, it lasts a long time. So I'm going to take about, make a small amount, take about half a cup of baking soda, take about 3 teaspoonfuls of liquid soap, I'm going to take 2 capfuls of hydrogen peroxide, 3% solution, found at supermarkets and pharmacies. And then, I like the smell of limes. I usually add a little lime juice. It's excellent. You can add a little water or a little more juice if you'd like it a little bit thinner. But this is quite creamy. So there you go. That's the demo. Got my scrub brush and my microfiber cloths to do the cleaning. That's all I need. Thanks.
That was great, Cynthia. Definitely want to try that at home now. Thank you for that demo video. And I think now I don't see any questions, but if anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A. I don't know if any of our other panelists might have questions, or if there's anything else you want to talk about, Cynthia. Can I put, I know you use lime, can I use like other, like, can I put like lemon juice or lavender or something in there for my scrub?
Yes, you can use, I generally, I mean, I might use, so lemon juice is excellent. Most people use lemon juice. I love limes, but lemon juice is good. Some people might put essential oil in there. That's safe, but sometimes that's hard to find and expensive. So I don't think it's necessary. You know, I have recipes on our website, but I really try to be, to keep it simple. As I mentioned, I use individual ingredients for you know, I don't do a lot of mixing. I use individual ingredients for certain end uses. For example, in the toilet, I might just throw in some baking soda and then pour in a little bit of liquid soap, and bam, I'm scrubbing. I don't have to mix, you know, anything like that. You could pour in some hydrogen peroxide and clean with that in the toilet. That's just as effective. I clean the toilet with hydrogen peroxide. You know, just in a spray bottle, nothing doesn't need to be mixed with anything else. So I keep it simple.
Okay, good. We do have a question in the chat. Do you have to use specifically distilled white vinegar for mold? Can you use other types of vinegar?
I have not experimented with things like apple cider vinegar. I think that smell is a little strong for me, but vinegar is acid. You know, I wouldn't be opposed to using different kinds of vinegars for, you know, attacking mold. If I had a mold stain, I would let the vinegar sit on the mold for over 10 minutes. But I stick to distilled white vinegar. It's inexpensive and comes in, you know, kind of a bulk form.
Thank you. Oh, I see. Oh, do we have other questions? No. I think someone was just asking about the recording. The recording will be available after in about a week's time. So we'll send that to all the attendees. Any other questions? I don't see anything else. I'm trying to see if I have any questions. Do you have any, Cynthia, any recommendations for like a clogged drain? Like
I do.
Use at home instead of having to buy like Drano or something?
Yeah, so a drain, and I use this whenever it's needed, and it works for me. Sometimes I have to do it twice. But what I do is I pour some baking soda, maybe a half cup baking soda down the drain, and then I follow it with a half cup of vinegar. So you'll get a little fizzing going on there. And while I'm doing that, I'm boiling some water, and I'm waiting about 15 minutes. So after I put the baking soda and vinegar down the drain, I wait 15 minutes, and then I pour, you know, my recipe says 2 quarts, but I'm usually just putting the whole teapot, you know, the kettle full of water down that drain slowly, very slowly. And then that usually does the trick. And if it doesn't, I might do it again and I'm just fine. So it really, I get a good feeling doing something like that instead of using something which I know CJ might be able to, I think drain cleaner might be something very caustic.
Yeah, well, drain cleaners come in both caustic and acidic varieties, and what you're doing there with your baking soda and vinegar one is you're taking a basic and an acid, and you're mixing them, and they react in the drain, and they kind of bubble up, and they're creating a little bit of heat, and the molecules are moving around really fast, and they break up the stuff in your drain, and then the hot water flushes all that through. So you're basically doing what Drano does on a slightly less potent scale. It's pretty clever, actually. I never really thought of that. And not dumping something that's potentially dangerous to your skin down the drain. So yeah, that's an interesting one. I never heard that one. Thank you, Cynthia.
And
yeah,
thank you, CJ. And I'd like to add some information about hydrogen peroxide, if this is helpful.
sure.
So we're in a pandemic, and many have been disinfecting consistently, and bleach is pretty much a go-to. And as I mentioned before, if you want to reduce your bleach use and just, go over those heavily touched surfaces, that's fine. As I mentioned, I use hydrogen peroxide, but the Environmental Protection Agency, the US EPA, has authorized or approved a list of specific products that kill coronavirus. And those are over 350 products. It's called List N, and I will put the link in the chat. But Some universities and nonprofits have sort of extracted those products that contain hydrogen peroxide from that list and sort of offer them up to the public, through public education and outreach. There is a list of products that are approved by the EPA to kill coronavirus that contain hydrogen peroxide. And they have extracted those products that don't contain bleach or a quat. And so what I did is I put together a list of, I evaluated all of the lists from some of the universities and nonprofits, and then picked out those few that were just so readily available that you could walk to the pharmacy or any store and get it off the shelf. And there's some brand name products that are easy to access because some of the products are not easy to access, but there's a list of at least 10 that do contain hydrogen peroxide that are effective against coronavirus. And I am not equating the use of hydrogen peroxide straight out of the bottle to kill coronavirus. It isn't the same as a brand product that contains hydrogen peroxide with other ingredients. Just want to make that clear.
Got it. Cynthia, we have a couple questions I'm hoping we can answer before our time is up today. And I think they're both for you. Do you have any recommendations for how to clean your windows? And then also, same person is asking, why use microfiber? So I'm hoping you can answer those two questions.
Okay, so windows, I just use some diluted vinegar. And that's very simple, or just a damp cloth. But the vinegar can wipe away some of the sort of the grit and the grime, maybe on the outside, and even on the inside, smudges and fingerprints. And so I tend to use diluted vinegar. Works very well. But the microfiber traps, say, dirt and germs and dust in between the fibers. So if you're going to clean it, you can throw a microfiber in the washing machine, but don't put it in the dryer. Don't put it in the dryer. But the microfiber traps the dirt in the little tiny fibers, and you can see like a microfiber cloth. Some of them sort of have texture to them. It's effective. And sometimes I clean with a damp cloth, especially if I want to dust. I'm not going to dust with a dry cloth. I'm going to dust with a damp microfiber. Does that help?
Yes, I mean, I think that was a good answer for me. So hopefully that answered the question that one of our guests had. And I think not seeing any more questions, I think we're going to wrap it up just a minute or two early. I do want to address some questions that people have mentioned, but thank you everyone for joining us today for this important webinar. Thank you again, Charles and Cynthia from San Mateo County Environmental Health Services for joining us, and Joanna for talking about our Shoreway Public Recycling Center. We ask attendees if you could fill out the survey that's been posted or will be posted in the chat. Also, thank you to staff for posting the EPA list N in there as well. But please fill out the survey that's been posted in the chat so we can get feedback. And if you have additional questions, I think there's a question for that as well. And for all participants today, as I mentioned earlier, you will receive a follow-up email in about a week with the recording, answers to questions, and a link to the PowerPoints that were presented today. I also can't leave without plugging the fact that we'll probably have some upcoming webinars. I mean, we will have some upcoming webinars on Earth Day in April, so be on the lookout for that. And we thank you again, everyone, for keeping yourself and your community safe from hazardous waste. Have a good afternoon, everyone.